When Rome fell in 476 AD, the world assumed it was over. It was not. Half of Rome survived. It moved east. It rebuilt. It lasted another 1,000 years. It became the most sophisticated civilization on Earth. Then one morning in 1453, it ended. What happened to the Byzantine Empire? The chronicler described Constantinople.
This is the city that the world cannot take. Its walls have stood for 1,000 years. Its harbor is protected by a chain of iron. Its people believe God himself guards these streets.
The Byzantines built the Hagia Sophia. For 1,000 years it was the largest cathedral on earth. When it was completed, the emperor stood inside and wept. He said he had surpassed Solomon himself. The chronicler examined the mosaics.
Every surface is covered in gold. Every wall tells the story of God and empire. No building on earth is more beautiful. No building on earth is more powerful.
The walls of Constantinople had never been breached. Attila the Hun turned back from them. The Persians could not break them. The Arabs besieged them twice and failed. The walls were not just stone. They were a message. The Byzantine gold solidus was the currency of the entire medieval world. It was used from England to India for 700 years without debasement.
Every coin that bears the emperor's face carries the weight of Rome. We are not a new empire. We are Rome. We have always been Rome.
The Byzantines did not think of themselves as Byzantine. They called themselves Romans. They spoke Greek, but they were Roman in their laws, their government, and their soul. The name Byzantine was invented by historians centuries after they were gone. Today the city is called Istanbul. The Hagia Sophia is a mosque. The walls are ruins. The empire is gone. But the stones remain. And the question remains: how did something this powerful disappear? In 285 AD, Emperor Diocletian split the Roman Empire in two. The West was too large to govern alone. The East got its own emperor, its own capital, its own identity. The chronicler described the founding.
Constantine chose this city because it sits between two worlds. 1 foot in Europe, 1 foot in Asia. The sea protects it on 3 sides. No enemy can surround it. No army can starve it.
Emperor Justinian was the greatest of the Byzantine emperors. He reconquered North Africa. He reconquered Italy. He reconquered Spain. For one brief moment, the Mediterranean was Roman again.
Justinian proved what we have always known. Rome does not end. Rome returns.
The chronicler recorded Justinian's conquests.
In 20 years, Justinian rebuilt the empire of Augustus. He sent his general Belisarius to Africa and Italy. Belisarius won with armies that should not have won. He was the last great Roman general.
Justinian gave the world something more lasting than his conquests. He codified all of Roman law into one document: the Corpus Juris Civilis. It became the foundation of legal systems across Europe and the world. It still shapes law today. The Byzantines invented Greek fire. A weapon that burned on water. A weapon that could not be extinguished. The formula was so secret that it was lost when the empire fell. No one has ever fully recreated it. The Byzantines smuggled silkworm eggs out of China hidden in hollow canes. They broke China's monopoly on silk. They built an industry that made Constantinople the richest city on earth. Every luxury in medieval Europe came through Byzantine hands. While Western Europe forgot how to read, Byzantine scholars preserved every Greek and Roman text. Every play by Sophocles. Every book by Plato. Every theory by Aristotle. When those texts reached Italy in the 1400s, they ignited the Renaissance. Christianity was not just the religion of the Byzantine Empire. It was the empire. The emperor was God's representative on earth. The Patriarch of Constantinople crowned the emperor. The church and the throne were the same hand. The chronicler described Byzantine faith.
The icons are not paintings. They are windows into heaven. When you look at an icon, the saint looks back. The Byzantines did not worship the image. They worshipped through the image.
The emperor knelt before no man, except the patriarch. At the moment of coronation, the most powerful man in the world bowed his head and received a crown from God's servant.
I am emperor by the grace of God. My authority comes from heaven. My duty is to heaven. I will answer to God before I answer to any man.
The Byzantines sent missionaries to convert the Slavs. They invented the Cyrillic alphabet to write the Slavic language. Today Russia, Serbia, Bulgaria, and Ukraine all use alphabets that came from Byzantine monks. The chronicler examined the Gospels.
Every letter is written in gold. Every page is a work of art. The Byzantines believed that beauty was a form of prayer. To make something beautiful was to honor God.
In 1054, the church split. Rome went one way. Constantinople went another. The Great Schism divided Christianity into Catholic and Orthodox. The wound never healed. It weakened both halves. It would eventually help destroy Byzantium. In 1204, the Crusaders came. Not to fight Muslims. To sack Constantinople. Christian armies destroyed the most Christian city on earth. They stole the gold. They burned the libraries. They broke the empire into pieces it never fully recovered from. The empire that returned after the Crusaders were expelled was a ghost of itself. The population never recovered. The trade never recovered. The confidence never recovered. The Crusaders had done what every foreign enemy could not. They broke Byzantium from the inside. From the moment of its birth, Byzantium was surrounded by enemies. The Persians. The Arabs. The Bulgars. The Normans. The Seljuk Turks. Every generation fought for survival. Every generation won. Until the last one. The chronicler described Byzantine warfare.
The Byzantines do not fight like Romans. They fight like chess players. They study the enemy. They bribe the enemy. They use diplomacy when possible and fire when necessary. They survive by being smarter than everyone else.
In 1071, everything changed. The Battle of Manzikert. The Byzantine emperor was captured in battle for the first time in history. The Seljuk Turks poured into Anatolia. Byzantium lost its richest farmland. It never recovered its full strength.
Manzikert was the wound that never closed. Every emperor after that day was fighting to hold back the flood.
The chronicler described the aftermath.
Anatolia was the heart of the empire. It fed Constantinople. It provided soldiers. It provided taxes. When the Turks took Anatolia, they did not just take land. They took the empire's future.
The Byzantines made their crisis worse with endless civil wars. Rival emperors hired Turkish mercenaries to fight each other. They let the enemy inside their own gates. They paid in land what they could not pay in gold. They never stopped paying. The empire shrank century by century. Greece, Bulgaria, Serbia, Anatolia. Egypt had been lost to the Arabs centuries before. By 1400, the Byzantine Empire was Constantinople and almost nothing else. A new power was rising. The Ottomans. They were organized, disciplined, and hungry. Their Janissary Corps was the finest infantry in the world. Their territory surrounded Constantinople on every side. The city was an island waiting to drown. By 1450, Constantinople had a population of 50,000 people. At its peak it had held 500,000. The palace was crumbling. The treasury was empty. The army was measured in thousands, not tens of thousands. The end was coming. Everyone knew it. In 1451, a 21-year-old became Sultan of the Ottoman Empire. His name was Mehmed. His advisors thought him too young, too reckless, too ambitious. They were right about the ambition. He wanted Constantinople. He had wanted it since he was a child. The chronicler described the young Sultan.
Mehmed speaks 6 languages. He has read Caesar and Alexander. He knows Byzantine history better than most Byzantines. He is not coming to plunder Constantinople. He is coming to inherit it.
Mehmed's first move was to cut off Constantinople from the Black Sea. He built a fortress on the Bosphorus in 4 months. Any ship trying to supply the city would be sunk. The noose was tightening.
When I saw the fortress rising across the water, I knew. No diplomacy would save us. No alliance would save us. Only the walls would save us. And God.
Mehmed commissioned the largest cannon ever built. A Hungarian engineer named Urban cast it from bronze. It was 27 feet long. It fired stone balls weighing 1/2 ton. It could be heard from 40 miles away. The chronicler recorded the bitter truth.
Urban first came to Constantinople and offered his cannon to the emperor. The emperor could not pay him. So Urban walked to the Ottoman camp and offered it to Mehmed. Mehmed paid him 4 times what he asked.
In April 1453, the Ottoman army arrived outside Constantinople. 100,000 soldiers. The city had 7,000 defenders. The odds were 14 to 1. The emperor sent messengers to Western Europe begging for help. None came. The emperor walked his walls and counted his men. He knew the numbers. He had always known the numbers. He chose to stay anyway. He could have sailed away. He had ships. He had gold. He chose the walls. The chronicler recorded the emperor's final address to his generals.
He told them they had 3 things worth dying for: their faith, their city, their emperor. He told them that a noble death was better than a life spent as a slave. Every man in that room chose to stay.
The siege began on April 6, 1453. The great cannon fired 7 times a day. Each shot shook the ground for miles. The walls that had stood for 1,000 years began to crack. The chronicler described the bombardment.
Each shot is like an earthquake. The stones that Theodosius built to last forever are falling. The defenders repair the walls at night with wood and earth. But wood and earth cannot stop a cannonball.
Every night the defenders repaired the damage. Every morning the cannons opened it again. The men were sleeping 2 hours at a time. They were running out of arrows. They were running out of hope. They were not running out of will. Mehmed pulled off one of the most audacious military maneuvers in history. He dragged 70 ships overland on greased logs. Over a hill. Into the Golden Horn Harbor. He bypassed the iron chain that protected the harbor.
When I saw his ships sailing in waters where no ship should be, I understood. He was not just a soldier. He was something else entirely.
The Byzantines now had to defend the harbor as well as the land walls. Their small force was stretched impossibly thin. They pulled soldiers from one wall to save another. The walls grew weaker everywhere. The chronicler recorded the moment hope died.
The Venetian ships never came. The Pope sent prayers, but no soldiers. The Hungarian king was busy with his own wars. Constantinople was alone. It had always been alone.
Men launched wave after wave of assaults. First the irregulars. Then the Anatolian troops. Finally the Janissaries. The defenders threw back every wave. For 53 days they held. 53 days against 14-1 odds. Then someone left a gate unlocked. A small postern gate called the Kirkaporta. Someone forgot to lock it in the chaos of the final assault. Ottoman soldiers found it. They poured through. After 53 days of heroic resistance, Byzantium ended because of an unlocked door. On the morning of May 29, 1453, Constantine XI received communion. He knew the walls were failing. He asked forgiveness from everyone he had ever wronged. He put on his armor. He walked to the walls for the last time. The chronicler described the emperor's final moments.
He tore off his imperial robes so that no one would know he was the emperor. He did not want to be captured. He did not want to be paraded through the streets of his own city as a prize.
He drew his sword and charged into the Ottoman soldiers. Not as an emperor fleeing. As a soldier fighting. His body was never found. The Ottomans searched for it. They offered rewards. They never found it.
Let them have the city. They will not have the emperor on his knees.
When the walls fell, the looting began. The chronicler described what happened next.
The soldiers took everything. They took the gold from the churches. They took the books from the libraries. They took the people from the streets. Everything that had been built over 11 centuries was stripped in one morning.
Thousands of citizens fled to the Hagia Sophia. They crowded inside and barred the doors. They prayed for a miracle. An old prophecy said that when the enemy entered the city, an angel would descend and drive them back. The angel did not come. The doors were broken open. The soldiers entered. The last act of the Roman Empire played out inside the greatest cathedral in the world. The prophecy had been wrong. Or the empire had not been worthy. No one could agree which. That afternoon, Mehmed II rode into Constantinople on a white horse. He went straight to the Hagia Sophia. He converted it to a mosque on the spot. He was 21 years old. He called himself Caesar of Rome. He meant it. As the call to prayer echoed across the city for the first time, 11 centuries of Roman civilization ended. Not with a slow fade. With a single morning. Historians have debated the fall of Byzantium for centuries. The cannons get the credit. But the cannons were just the final blow. The empire had been dying for 200 years. The real causes were older and deeper. The chronicler named the first cause.
The Crusaders of 1204 broke something that could not be fixed. They stole the wealth. They fractured the territory. They destroyed the trust between East and West. Byzantium spent 2 centuries trying to recover. It never fully did.
The chronicler named the second cause.
The Byzantines were their own worst enemy. In the last 2 centuries, civil war after civil war tore the empire apart. Emperors hired Turks to fight other Byzantines. They paid in land. The Turks kept the land and kept coming back for more.
Venice and Genoa had been given trade monopolies inside the empire as payment for military help. They took over Byzantine commerce completely. The empire that had taxed the world's trade could no longer profit from its own harbor. By 1400, the treasury was so empty that the crown jewels had been pawned to Venice. The emperor melted down golden altar pieces to pay his soldiers. The Hagia Sophia had leaks in the roof that no one could afford to fix.
I ruled the ghost of an empire. I commanded the memory of an army. But the walls were real. And as long as the walls stood, Rome was not dead.
The Pope offered military help in exchange for reuniting the Catholic and Orthodox churches. Constantine XI agreed. The Orthodox clergy refused. The split of 1054 was still open. It cost Byzantium the only army that could have saved it. Against all of this stood the Ottomans. A state at the peak of its power against a state at the end of its strength. Organized against fractured. Full treasury against empty. 100,000 against 7,000. The outcome was mathematics, not destiny. The chronicler summed it up in one line.
Byzantium did not fall because it was weak. It fell because it ran out of time. Given another century, it might have recovered. It was not given another century.
When Constantinople fell, Byzantine scholars fled west. They carried their manuscripts with them. Greek philosophy, ancient mathematics, classical literature. When those ideas hit Italy, they ignited the Renaissance. The death of one civilization gave birth to another. The chronicler described Byzantium's lasting gifts.
The Cyrillic alphabet, the Orthodox faith, Roman law, the preservation of Greek thought, Byzantine art, Byzantine architecture. Half of what the modern world calls civilization passed through Constantinople at some point.
Russia called itself the Third Rome. Moscow claimed to be the successor of Constantinople. The Russian Tsar took his title from Caesar. The Russian Orthodox Church traced its authority to Constantinople. Byzantium died. Its ghost ruled half the world. The chronicler described the legal legacy.
Justinian's code shaped every legal system in continental Europe. The concept of innocent until proven guilty, the rights of the accused, the distinction between public and private law. These ideas came from Byzantine lawyers.
The Hagia Sophia still stands. For 900 years it was a cathedral. For 500 years it was a mosque. Today it is a mosque again. Every architect who builds a dome anywhere on earth is working in its shadow.
They took the city. But everything we built, everything we thought, everything we believed passed through their hands and changed them. We did not disappear. We dissolved into the world.
Byzantine art shaped every painting in medieval Europe. The gold backgrounds. The formal positioning of saints. The use of reverse perspective to draw the viewer into sacred space. Walk into any medieval European church and you are walking inside a Byzantine idea. Istanbul today sits on the bones of Constantinople. Every time a foundation is dug, they find Byzantine walls. Byzantine cisterns. Byzantine mosaics. The city that replaced Byzantium was built on top of it, out of it, and because of it. The chronicler spoke of the final gift.
When the scholars fled to Italy with their manuscripts, they did not know they were starting the Renaissance. They thought they were saving the past. They were actually building the future.
The walls of Theodosius still stand in Istanbul. You can walk along them today. You can touch the stones that held back Attila and the Arabs and the Crusaders. They are cracked now. Worn. Grass grows through them. But they stand. The chronicler stood before the last Byzantine eagle.
The double-headed eagle looked both east and west. It was the perfect symbol for an empire that stood between two worlds for 11 centuries. The eagle is carved in stone. The empire it watched over is dust.
Historians still argue about what killed Byzantium. Some blame the Crusaders. Some blame the civil wars. Some blame the trade monopolies. Some blame the church schism. They are all right. Byzantium was not killed by one enemy. It was killed by 1,000 small betrayals across 200 years. Mehmed II was not just a conqueror. He preserved the Hagia Sophia. He invited the Greek patriarch to stay. He called himself Caesar of Rome. He understood that he had not just taken a city. He had inherited a civilization. The chronicler spoke his final words.
Constantinople stood for 11 centuries because the people inside it believed it was worth dying for. The moment they stopped believing that in enough numbers, the walls became just stone. And stone can always be broken.
The emperor who refused to flee. The city that held for 53 days against impossible odds. The civilization that preserved the ancient world long enough to restart it. Byzantium did not just fall. It bought the world 1,000 years. What would you trade for 1,000 years? Like and subscribe to Empires Untold. The full story is on the channel. Every great empire believes it is permanent. Every great empire is wrong. Remember Constantinople. Remember what happened. Remember that it could happen to you.